Christmas, it's the busiest time of the year. Retailers and advertisers are fighting for our attention, but has this barrage of imagery replaced the original message of Christmas? I'm Lorna Duick, and you're watching Context, the show that looks at life beyond the headlines. Christmas is no longer just a holiday, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. 'Tis the season for things like this, and this. But what about this? Christmas symbols and images have emerged and become not only a tradition, but also a brand. Has the aggressive branding of Christmas replaced the meaning of Christmas? Let's put it in context. Well, our first guest says marketers didn't steal Christmas, they invented it as we know it. Mike Tennant is co-author of the best-selling book, The Age of Persuasion, How Marketing Ate Our Culture. He's created dozens of award-winning ads and campaigns. He's also known as the co-creator, co-writer, and producer of the highly popular CBC radio series, The Age of Persuasion. Mike, thanks for being with us.
It's a pleasure, Lorna.
Okay, just basic lesson here first. What actually is branding?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Branding, you get a different definition for almost everybody you ask in the business, but this is my definition. Branding is the way the brain works. It's not an actual expression given to a process by advertisers, but rather it's the way the brain remembers things. It does it not by filing things by name or association the way we would with a filing cabinet or a computer file, but rather it actually associates things with an emotion or feeling and sorts them that way. One of the best examples we use in talks is the Beatles. When the Beatles broke in North America in the early 1960s, people wanted to know who was John and George and Paul and Ringo. They knew the names but couldn't associate them with the particular guys. So what they did was they associated them with a feeling or an impression of each person. So the cheeky one was John, the cute one was Paul, the quiet one was George, and the clown was Ringo. You see, and by those associations, people said, oh yeah, I remember who these guys are.
And that's how brand works.
That's essentially how branding works.
Okay, let's flip into Christmas. Okay. How do we understand the branding that has gone around Christmas?
Well, Christmas has a life of its own. It might be a bit of a misnomer to call it a brand in the sense that there's no star chamber of people sitting down deciding how Christmas is going to be thought of and organized and run the way, say, a running shoe or a soft drink is. What happens with Christmas is it has a life of its own, but marketers are trying to pile on and actually have their brand front and center when a whole lot of spending goes on each December. But
Santa started the brand, didn't he? The idea of branding it, how did that happen?
Santa's an interesting evolution because Santa got its origin back in the 1820s with a visit from St. Nick, the poem attributed to Clement Clarke Moore. And then in about 1862, in Harper's Magazine, an artist gave a very, very familiar rendition of Santa Claus with the white beard and the big fuzzy clothing. And in that case, Santa Claus was actually an advocate of the cause of the North in the Civil War. Flip ahead to the 1920s, and Coca-Cola had a marketing problem.
Nobody wanted to drink Coke in the winter.
Nobody wanted to drink Coke in the winter. So they had to come up with some sort of idea to get Coke sold in December. So they resurrected this idea of Santa Claus, who was sort of partly invented in the 19th century, and they gave him the modern Saturday Evening Post, rosy cheeks, wreath of smoke from his pipe look that we come to know Santa Claus for today. And Coke denies that Santa Claus is red and white because those are the Coca-Cola colors, but I'll tell you, Coca-Cola breathes easily knowing that Santa Claus does not wear the red and white and blue of Pepsi-Cola.
Okay, so if that's how enduring a Christmas brand can be over it, maybe you have a few favorite examples of the brand that you think have really said, this is Christmas.
Wow, everybody wants to pile onto that, and everybody wants to be the Christmas thing. I think if we look to the different sectors, if we look to entertainment, for example, everybody wants to have the Christmas movie that people have to see every December. People want to have the one thing that's at the dinner table I mean, somewhere along the lines, the turkey marketers of the world hit the jackpot because turkey is the must-have meal at Christmas.
Right.
The problem for turkey marketers is, besides Christmas and Thanksgiving, they can't sell turkeys especially well in the rest of the year.
Because we filed it away at those 2 holidays.
Yeah, so everybody wants to have the must-have thing, the eggnog, the soft drink that has to be there. Do people drink mulled wine, for example? That would be a holy grail for wine manufacturers. They all want to pile on this massive money flying around at Christmas.
So is there another Christmas that can be imagined, or is it lost to the power of whatever the brand is that we're drawn to?
Well, I'll tell you, there's this lamentation each year by many people of faith that Christmas no longer belongs to Christians, but I look at it this way. Christians never really owned Christmas. It was co-opted from them in about the 4th century from the pagans who came up with so many of the trappings we know today. The pagans gave us Christmas trees, Christmas lights, giving to the poor, gifts at Christmas time, the whole focus on children.
Right. And then the Christians tried to take all those traditions back, rebrand them.
What they did was the pagans had the midwinter solstice celebration in December, and the church didn't like that very much. So what they did was, let's hold a mass to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, crowd out this pagan celebration. Let's yell louder than them and have people celebrating us. But what happened over the years is people started to adopt all the trappings of paganism, which is where we got the tree and the wreaths and the mistletoe and the holly and the ivy associated with Christmas. Skip ahead to the Industrial Revolution, what we call the Age of Persuasion of about the last 150 years. Suddenly advertising and marketers became the new pagans. Their motive was not necessarily to forward Christmas as a Christian message. They actually wanted to cash in on the fact that people wanted to get together and experience something warm and fuzzy. They wanted to have meals with their family. They wanted to travel. They wanted to buy gifts. And all those presented business opportunities. When we got mass media, suddenly everyone was piling on trying to get a piece of it.
So do you think the Christians should abandon it now? It's been lost?
I don't know if it was ever belonging to Christians in the modern era. I think Christians should probably just celebrate Christ's birth as they want. And by the way, one of the things they co-opted is December 25th, which has no historical association with the birth of Christ.
You're going to overfill our mailbox, but you're going to come back later, okay? Later in the program.
Yeah, but they're all addressed to you, Lorna, and that's the amazing thing.
All right. Well, now it's time to find out what you think. Should Christmas be considered a cultural holiday more than a religious one? Call us, email us, or leave a video message. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. And we'll have answers from our studio audience on that after the break. Next, we're going to meet a world-renowned sculptor, Tim Schmaltz, on what he sees as the true brand of Christmas. All right, before the break, we asked the question, should Christmas be considered a cultural holiday more than a religious holiday? And here's how the audience voted. 58% said no, 21% aren't quite sure. And for our TV viewers, send your answers to the addresses on the screen. Well, before I introduce our next guest, we've got a few comments in the studio audience about this issue of how branding has taken over the reason, the meaning of Christmas. This gentleman here with the microphone.
Well, I think the problem is that why it's been taken over is because we've made something which is on one day, which should be a lifestyle of sharing and giving. So now it's been harnessed and taken over by capitalism.
All right, great point. I think we've got another comment here coming from over here on the left.
Over the years, I've looked at the hectic pace of life and what is happening. And what I've concluded is whether you label it as religion or not, at the end of the year, it's like putting a pause, a button that everyone kind of stops. And there's this collective throughout the world that people actually are celebrating in family and groups, and whether you call it religion or not, it is actually reflecting what the Christmas part of that particular season is all about. So on a different level, it is happening.
Okay, front row, you've got a comment about religious holiday versus cultural holiday.
Well, I really think that we have a responsibility to make it our own thing. Like, I mean, if you think it's a religious thing, if you do think of Christmas as a Christian and you're taking it as a celebration, yes, I'm celebrating Christ's birth, then you have the responsibility to treat it as such. I mean, yes, it has been taken out of context horrendously, but if you want to celebrate Christ's birth, whether it be on the 25th or throughout the rest of the year, you have to do that in the way that's proper. If I want to celebrate it, I can, and this is the way I choose to do it.
All right. Okay. Well, our next guest is an artist who is devoted to trying to figure out how to bring the Christian brand to the forefront of the Christmas season. Tim Schmaltz is a Canadian sculptor whose work is displayed around the world. He sculpts using bronze, wood, and stone. He uses art to communicate the Christian story. Our first guest said, give it up for the brands. They've taken over. Commercialism has taken over. You're not about to see that happen. Why?
Well, first of all, I'm a sculptor. I'm not an anthropologist. But when I look at creating a sculpture, I need a great subject matter. I need to start off with something that's really fascinating for me to create a fascinating piece of artwork. And I think that when you take the spiritual out of Christmas and treat it as a holiday, just without thinking of the religious implications, you're kind of taking the soul out of the theme. And I think that the result is something inferior.
Now, you have got a fascinating history with exploring how art has always been used to communicate the most important messages for the human race. The church, you think, was the originator of the billboards. What do you mean by that?
They knew how to get people's attention. You have to understand that when the Christian church started using artwork, most people were illiterate. So what they actually did was create these amazing stained glass, amazing sculptures, so people could kind of get these, not sound bites, but visual bites, and take these messages with them. It's, in a sense, exactly what Nike does today. And there is something fascinating about visual images. It has a lot of power, and it's interesting because if you have a word in print, that is powerful. But then when you take that word and actually create something three-dimensional, it really does have a unique force.
We caught up with you as you were sculpting a very special word. Tell me about this particular creche that you're creating for this Christmas.
Well, it's fascinating because I have a real personal spirituality, and a lot of my artwork is, I almost treat it as a meditation or a prayer. And so this Christmas, I've never did a nativity set per se. I did Holy Families, but I wanted to have a more traditional nativity. And so I started to create this piece, and what it basically is a celebration. It's a joy. And it's interesting because throughout the history of the church, I think the first nativity was in the 1500s, and that was created by St. Francis, the rumor has it, and he actually had live people. And so what I wanted to do with this nativity is create that theater, that excitement.
And what do you hope people understand was happening between this Holy Family and God that we're unwrapping now at Christmas?
Yeah, absolute joy. And I want that, I want to create this piece also for that connection that this is a joy and it's a celebration of the birth of Christ. And I think that the interesting thing, whether Christmas happened, whether it eclipsed a pagan celebration, it's still the beginning of Christ for us. And so we need that, I believe we need that marker for our faith. And it's the same as, like, I'm sure Easter was once a pagan celebration too that the church took over, but it doesn't matter. We still need Easter, and I would hate to see in the future people questioning whether there should be any Christianity in Easter eggs or Easter bunnies anymore. Like, it just seems. Don't get me wrong. I'm an absolute capitalist. I believe in people making money, but I still believe we have to hold these things sacred.
Who puts these creches out in the marketplace? Where's the right appetite for this?
I believe that if you look at, and I thought about this just recently, if you look at someone's home, nowadays we're in a very minimalist decor. Very rarely do we put things out. At Christmas time, people go crazy with this stuff. Santa Claus, like 5 Santa Clauses. But the thing that's missing in a lot of these homes is any visual Christian symbol. So hopefully in the future, I can see a future where there's more of these nativities out there.
All right, we're going to keep you on the set for a little longer because you weren't always this interested. We're going to find out why the story of Jesus has become so personal for you as an artist and a world-renowned sculptor. But first, it's time to find out what you think. Does Christmas bring you more stress than joy? Please send us your answers by phone, email, Facebook, or Twitter, and we'd love to know your opinion. Well, our studio audience is taking a live vote, and we'll have those results shortly. And we continue our conversation with Tim right after the break.
When in the Toronto area, Lorna invites you to be a part of her live studio audience. Check out our website for dates and times. Contextwithlorna.com. Come and join the conversation.
Before the break, we asked our studio audience, does Christmas bring you more stress than joy? And here's how they voted. You guessed it, just about half, a little over half. Actually, it is a stressful time of year. Well, let's hear from our studio audience now. I think we've got someone here on the left. Christmas and your thoughts about stress versus joy, commercialism versus branding versus the faith aspect.
Well, I think that giving at Christmas, you know, it's synonymous. People want to give. Unfortunately, when January rolls around, the credit card debt. I do not think that people should enjoy Christmas on credit cards, which is how most of the society is doing it. I think there's something wrong with that. I think we need to get away from giving things and giving of ourselves more relationally. And that's what I feel.
All right, we've got another comment beside you.
I think there's also just a lot going on around Christmas. I actually work at a church, and there's a significant increase in stress just because all the extra events, all the extra things that have to be done before Christmas, before the break between Christmas and New Year's. So there's just so much stuff, and you get really stressed just over all of it that has to happen and has to be put into place.
All right, thank you. Well, we're back with sculptor Tim Schmaltz, who uses his art to be an advertisement for a holier message than credit cards and stress. Tim, why did you really believe you needed a brand that was holier than what the market is offering to inspire you in your art?
Well, that's my whole history as a sculptor. And what I like to say is I've had an artistic conversion in my life with my artwork. And I think part of it is that once you spend so much time, and I think most sculptors, most artists that are very serious about what they do spend all of their free time. It's an obsession. And once you spend all of this time, you want to think that it's going to something that is valuable. And early on when I was a teenager, I started doing, actually I could send you some pictures of it, really abstract artwork. I loved the idea of doing this contemporary abstract, almost visual puns. That's how I'd like to describe them. And this one time I thought to myself, well, what's it all for? What am I glorifying? And that's when I really questioned our art world today about how a lot of the artwork is just visual puns. It's made to see things differently. And there's maxims like, if everything is artwork. Well, if everything is artwork, nothing is artwork. And I was wrestling with these ideas because I knew I was going to be a sculptor. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but what to sculpt? What makes sense to spend my life doing? I remember this one time I had a dream, and I woke up after the dream in the morning, and I spent the whole day working on this. And I thought, was that dream really valuable enough to me to spend the whole day working on it? And it was at this point that I started to become totally involved with all of the history of artwork. And the pieces that I liked were the pieces that were the celebration of Christianity. And then I put the two ideas together, and I started to create Christian artwork.
And why was Jesus such a worthy subject for you? I think
if you're a Christian, it's obvious. Well, maybe it isn't obvious. I think it's a glorification. It is a celebration. It's almost like when you create artwork, it's almost like a prayer.
You didn't used to have that kind of respect. If I look back through your bio, like, there's a pretty rough guy back there. What changed? You did not have that kind of interest in God when you started your art journey.
It was this. It was an absolute feeling of emptiness. And basically, when I looked at myself, and I looked at my artwork, and I looked at it all. And then I had to look, because I believed I was going to be an artist my whole life. Then I looked at the whole scope of my life, and I thought, this is bloody empty. what am I serving here? And then so I started doing, like I mentioned, I started doing Christian artwork. Instantly, the feeling I got was something completely different. It was an exhilaration. It was a happiness. It was amazing.
So the brand we've been trying to defend, or at least I've been trying to defend in this program, has been that Jesus is the free gift that we celebrate at Christmas time. Do you feel that gift has changed your life?
Absolutely. I think that when you sit there, and this is like I'm a sculptor, and a lot of my peers are working on different subject matter. It almost seems like a lot of this contemporary artwork wants to show the darker sides of the world. Well, when you're celebrating the Gospels, when you're taking, and I've just recently did this for a church in Dublin, when you're taking every single chapter of the Gospel of St. John and actually visually translating it into a sculpture, it just transforms you. It's an amazing experience, because it's interesting because you can read the Gospels, but when you sculpt the Gospels, or when you take a biblical idea and you think, how am I going to give dignity to this? It becomes an overwhelming experience.
And what has convinced you that the stories you're sculpting, ancient stories, are true?
I didn't really necessarily need any convincing of that when I was working on it. It was like I don't know what Christians said it in the past, but concerning Christianity, you get to a point in your faith, I think, where you believe that your faith is more credible than yourself. And I think that when you spend so many hours thinking of the theology, and I think you're thinking, I personally think about it in a way that kind of gives form in a different way. It's almost like I have a ball, and this is my faith, and I'm always, or say a gem, a beautiful gem, and instead of just looking at it straight on, when I'm doing sculpture, it's like I'm turning it, seeing how the light reflects and moving it around. And I think I have a very unique understanding of Christianity because of the years that I've spent doing this.
All right, Tim Schmaltz. It is interesting. And lots more of you on our website when we return, changing the brand of your Christmas. That was great. Well, we're going to close today back with branding expert Mike Tennant about what is the brand of Christmas. And Mike, you said to me, as someone who really values the free gift of Jesus as the brand of Christmas, you said, let it go. Just give in to commercialism and do your spiritual thing on the side. Yeah. Have you changed your mind after hearing Tim talk about what Tim had to say? Yeah.
I also love some of the comments we were getting from the audience, but I look at it this way. Christmas in Canada is a $30 billion industry. There's so much media clatter. It is the noisiest time of year for all media. Every Canadian spends upwards of $1,000 on Christmas alone. What people are after is not necessarily the peace of Jesus Christ, but rather the experience, the warm fuzzies of the secular idea of Christmas. As a Christian, I think this is a really good time to find opportunities to talk about your faith, to talk about Christ, but there's otherwise so much noise and so much rabble out there.
You're waving the white flag on this.
I would say you've got the whole rest of the year to have the conversation. It's actually a really, really tough time.
Up at Christmas? Okay, I'm not going there, but I do want to ask you then. So what you did tell us is branding is where you file it in the brain, what gives you the trigger.
Yeah.
If I want to have a sacred experience this Christmas, if I want my file in my brain to say, this is about a free gift that Jesus came. What would be your advice on how I could experience the sacred in this clutter?
I think you have to decide what Christmas you're willing to give up. Are you willing to give up the paganisms, the trappings, all the things people want you to buy and experience and be part of and spend your money on? Are you willing to set those aside and actually make conscious choices about what you're willing to sacrifice in order just to focus very peacefully and very quietly on your faith? And there, I think you'll find it in those quiet moments.
Mike Tennant, author of The Age of Persuasion. Thank you very much. It's great to have you with us. Well, today's audience members will receive a complimentary book from Faith Family Books and Gift Store. And for your chance at home to get a free book, just send us your feedback on today's show. We reach into the mailbag and send out some books to all of you who write in. So send us an email or leave a video message. We're on Facebook and Twitter at Context TV. And for the team at Context, we are thinking about Christmas. Merry Christmas. I'm Lorna Dueck. Thanks for watching. That was great.